So I was in a meeting with the client the other day, and we're working on a mock interview. And the plan is simple. We hop on the call, we run the mock interview straight through from the beginning. She answers the questions, we debrief, and then she tightens things up before the real interview. Now, what's important to know is that by this point, she was prepared. She had already built her interview kit. She had already thought through intentionally and strategically all of her language, her positioning, and her impact. And so we start doing the mock interview, and she begins to tell me about yourself response. And at first, it sounds great, but then it starts to feel a little monotone. And then it starts to get circular. And then she catches herself. I'm in full rambling mode. Those are not my words. She literally stopped and said, I'm in rambling mode now. And I remember smiling a little bit because I thought, I can sometimes do the exact same thing. And so we paused for a second. And instead of correcting the answer and trying it again, we talked for a couple of minutes to figure out what was happening in her mind as she was circling that same point. And in the middle of that conversation, the thing that came to me, I just kind of said it out loud and I said, maybe it's helpful if you put your head in your body. We kind of laughed because it sounded a little funny, but that was it. That one sentence made everything click. She took a deep breath, she started again, and the difference was night and day. Her answer was clear, it was natural, it sounded so confident. And honestly, as someone who was listening to her tell me about yourself response, it just felt good to listen to it. What's most interesting is that she didn't do anything new. She didn't get new words. She didn't do more prep and come back. She wasn't suddenly more experienced or more capable. She had the foundation already. She had already put in the work. It's just that something internal just turned on with that one statement. And that moment really caught my attention because I've already been seeing this pattern show up again and again. And I was already researching this topic of why do we ramble and what's exactly going on. So today, I want to talk you through what I think is happening here. Because if you find yourself rambling in interviews as well, especially when it's under pressure, this is going to help you to understand why. And once you understand why, communicating clearly becomes a whole heck of a lot easier. Hey there, you're listening to the Uncommon Career Podcast, and I'm here with you every single week to make sure that your job search is a little lighter, a little clearer, and a whole lot more human. My name is Patricia Ortega, and I help people like you articulate their value clearly so that you can show up confident and prepared and grounded in your job search without feeling like you're underselling yourself or like you're performing under pressure. I help you find the words so that you feel good about how you're explaining your impact and so that it translates into job offers that are better and that come faster. Now, when I think about the moments when people struggle to share their full value, I tend to see two experiences most common. The first one is I know my stuff, but as soon as I get put on the spot, everything falls out of my head. And the second one is I find myself talking, but as I'm talking, I start wondering, are they understanding me? Did I explain that well? Let me say it again. And so on the surface, these look like two very different problems. One looks like freezing and blanking out, and the other is more rambling and going on forever. But what I have found is that both of these point to the same underlying issue. In the first situation, you're second guessing yourself before you even say a word. And of course, that's going to lead to undersharing because everything has just left your brain. But in the second situation, you're second guessing yourself after you've started speaking, which means that you're not going to repeat yourself, over explain, and we are at rambling stage. Now, these two are very different behaviors, but they both come from the same root cause, and that's your belief. Specifically, this is the belief that what you have prepared will actually hold up under pressure. Because here's the thing, belief on its own isn't enough to carry you through. I mean, I can believe that I can sing and fly and dance, but reality is going to correct me pretty harshly if I get on stage or if I jump off the roof. See, belief has to be earned. There's so many conversations going around saying, if you just believe, you can make it happen. But reality is that is not true. Belief has to be earned. And it's earned through preparation that's been thought through. that you have structured, that you've strategized, and most of all, that you have pressure tested. This is why mock interviews are so important. It's because it helps us get the rust out of our interview skills, but also it helps us pressure test our preparation and make sure that we truly are ready and see the places where we're not quite ready. And so, what I see a lot, especially with high achieving seasoned professionals, is that they know their industry. You know your space, you know your work. You have tons of years of experience and you can share it 5 ways from Sunday. However, you haven't fully prepared to strategically translate that experience into employer facing language while including storytelling aspects, while including structure and ways to help them remember and share the context. All these extra layers mean that when you're talking to a peer or a colleague, it's super easy because they're not evaluating you. But when you're in an interview, your brain is juggling these layers. You're juggling the content of your message, the way that you're framing it, how relevant it is, and what parts you decide to emphasize on, and how you're going to make sure that it lands well so they can truly understand the impact you've made. And if that translation hasn't yet been practiced enough, your mind knows you're not ready. So even if you want to believe that you're going to sound crystal clear when you share your response in this new setting, your body and your mind are not really going to trust that you're fully prepared to carry this through. And when that belief doesn't hold under the new pressure, you're going to get one of those two outcomes, right? You're going to blank out or you're going to overshare and then ramble. Now, this doesn't mean that you're any less confident or that it's a self esteem issue. No, this is most of the time a preparation gap that shows up under stress. Most of the time, it basically is just a red flag telling you, hey, you might need a little bit more preparation. And you want to make sure and trust the amount of preparation that you've had so that when it's pressure tested, you still feel confident. That's why this one sentence worked for my client. When we just said, hey, maybe you just need to put your head in your body. Again, we laughed it off because we thought it was funny. But it's not that it's a magic sentence. It's not that if I say this to you, automatically you're going to have great responses to your interview. It's because that one sentence just resonated for her and helped her to access work she had already done to prepare. So, this is the part that I really want you to remember. If you find yourself rambling in interviews, it's probably not because you truly don't know what to say. It's because your mind and your body don't really trust that you're ready and that your preparation is going to carry you on. And so that belief, that sense of I'm ready and so I'm comfortable sharing from what's in my mind, it's only going to be strengthened with preparation that's designed specifically for that moment. So a super quick example of this is, I used to teach in the College of Engineering at a university, and there was always these tests that were really difficult for students. And the thing that seemed to work the best is to have a mock exam, and not just in the comfort of your own home, but to have a mock exam that is tightly timed in a cold classroom. And when they did that over and over again, now their belief was anchored in that same environment. It's preparation that was designed for that moment. That's what I want you to remember. If you ramble, it's not because you don't know what to say, it's because your preparation hasn't been pressure tested for that specific situation. Now, here's the part that's kind of encouraging, kind of exciting. This is exactly what mock interviews and interview prep are for. They're not to prove that you're ready. Everyone comes into these mock interviews trying to have the perfect interview, but that's not actually the point. The point is to show you where your belief still needs reinforcement, to show you where you're strong and where you still need just a little bit more preparation. Nearly every single client I work with usually starts off around the interview prep section saying something like, I have never prepared this much for an interview. And at first, I used to feel bad about it, like, dang, I'm making you work harder than you probably need to. But almost every single one of them says once they're hired, I didn't realize that this is what it takes to show up at my very best. And moving forward, this is an absolute non negotiable. I cannot believe what I was showing up with before we did this interview kit. And if you're curious how I help clients build that level of preparation, the one that supports your trust in yourself even under pressure, You can learn more about my 5-step approach at theuncommoncareer.com/90. That's theuncommoncareer.com/90. Listen, if this episode helped you put into words something that you've been experiencing, that is a win, because clarity always comes before confidence. First, you need to know, what exactly do I want to get confident in? What is missing? What's the gap? And then you can address that gap, put that into practice, and now here comes confidence. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me this week. I am looking forward to seeing you here next week. And until then, know that Denise and I are cheering you on. We're praying for you, and we'll see you on the next one. Hey, thanks for listening. I really appreciate you spending time with me today. If you found this episode helpful, please tap the 5-star review on the show's homepage in your podcast app. It would absolutely make my day, and it helps others discover the Uncommon Career Podcast. Now, to download your free career resources and learn how I help seasoned professionals land amazing offers in as little as 90 days, click on the link in the description or go to theuncommoncareer.com. Thanks again, and I'll see you on the next one.